Hi everyone, this is Cheryl at the Sewing Basket. Today is Friday, May 8th, and we are here for our daily dose. And what? Oh, you can't hear me? You can't hear me with my mask on? So today we're going to be talking about some mask making again. Elaine and I have been wearing these here masks, and these masks have a wire at the nose and they come down a little lower on your face, and we're just finding that they're more comfortable, and we've had a lot of people asking us about this pattern. So we're going to be adding the pattern onto the daily dose today. And it was a email that I received from the Patrick Lose Studios. He's a fabric designer, and so I received a copy of this free pattern back early April. And I just started making them up maybe a week or two ago, and we really like it. So we thought we would talk you through how to make this style. It's called the duckbill mask rather than the pleated one.
The other thing I want to add is it works great. My glasses don't steam up.
Right, because you have that wire around your nose, it kind of forces your breath to go down instead of up. So for those of us who wear glasses, you're not always steaming up your glasses. So with this pattern, it's going to give you very good instructions on how to make it. Very clear, good photos. And then it's also going to give you 4 different sizes. So you have the extra small for the little ones, and then a small for a child, and then an adult female and adult male, okay? So the adult female is the size that Elaine and I are wearing, and it fits us both very well. One thing I found is, you're going to be copying these on paper to start, but if you take this pattern and if you use transfer ease, so if you lay this on top of your
pattern ease,
pattern ease, if you lay this on top of your paper and trace it, you can pin over and over in this, and it's not going to rip like the paper would. So I have my patterns here that have been pre-traced onto the pattern ease. And for each size, you're going to have 2. So you're going to have the outside one, which is longer, and then this is your inner one. The other thing that's nice about these is they're made with a casing on the side. And I'm just going to flip this over my head. So it's one piece of, on mine I have ribbon, so the mask just slides back and forth. So when you want to put it on, you flip it over your head, and then you can slide it up, and then put it over your head again, and it can just hang there. And as soon as I want to put it up, I kind of pinch it on my nose, and I just put my ribbon over my ears, and I'm good to go, okay? The first thing they want you to do is you have to cut out 2 pieces of your outer and 2 pieces of your inside. So when you start, you want to fold your fabric right sides together, so that way you're ready to go straight to the sewing machine. So fold your fabric right sides together, put your pattern piece on. Oop. And I wrote on there, so my writing needs to be face side up. I'm just going to put a few pins in it to hold it in place. If you use these flat pins and a ruler, your ruler isn't going to wiggle around if you're working with the flat pins. I like to use a small 28 millimeter rotary cutter and a straight ruler. So on my straight edges, I can just cut, turn a little bit. And then with this little ruler, I can just real easily cut around that curve. It makes a much smoother seam than if you're trying to do it with the scissors. But if you try to use the 45 or 60 millimeter rulers, the blades are just too big to go around these kind of tighter curves. So you're going to cut out your outer mask and then the inner mask. And I'm making this one for my daughter, and she picked out this cheese fabric. She lives in Tennessee, and she wants to be the Packer fan, so then she also picked out green for the inside. So we're doing a cheese head with a green inside. I have some pieces prepped over at the sewing machine, so we're actually going to walk over there and continue the demonstration at the machine. All right, so I have, this is my inner lining, and then this is my outer piece. And because I already had them folded right sides together, oops, I take my pattern off, and I'm just ready to put it right under the sewing machine. And I like to start with the flat side instead of starting with the point. And you're just going to work with that 1/4 inch seam. So I have my 1/4 inch foot on. And I'm just going to ease that curve around the machine. I'm going to do the same thing. Now, with the inside one, I went to the ironing board and I folded this up a 1/4 inch and ironed it before I came over to the machine, and we'll be working with that in just a minute. I want to sew my curve first, but if I iron it before I sew my curve, then I can just pick it up and iron or stitch those seams down, and I don't have to run back and forth to the ironing board. And then you do want to clip this curve. So I'm just going to clip that. And I want to clip close to my stitching line, but I don't want to clip through that thread. Okay, and you do that on both of them. And then I want to come back, and this edge that I ironed up a 1/4 inch, I'm just going to sew a straight seam down there.
So that's a raw edge?
It's a raw edge turned over. This pattern actually leaves a pocket so you can put a filter inside the mask. So this is just kind of turning that edge under where you would slip your filter into. All right. And then you're going to go to the ironing board and you're going to turn this, and you want to iron your seam real well. And I believe they say to iron it to the right side. And you want to iron both of them in the same direction, so when I put it together, when they have you have a pocket to put a wire in there, and it's easier to get that wire through if both of your seams are going in the same direction. Otherwise, you keep hitting a roadblock. So you're going to iron both of your seams in one direction, and then you're going to come back and you're just going to stitch it down so that you're stitching down all this little seam down tight. Okay, and I actually got that done over here. So this is where I did my second stitch line. So this is holding down all these little guys that I snipped. Okay, and then it gives you this top stitch on the front. Okay, so this is my outside. This is my inside. I'm now going to put them right side together. And I'm going to pin. So I usually put 3 pins in, one at the center and then one at the ends of my shorter green one. And now I need to stitch.
Hang on one second. Let me just show.
Yep.
So you have the yellow hanging off each side a little bit.
Right. So this was my outside one, and it's longer than my inner.
Perfect.
When I start sewing, I'm going to start all the way out here, not where these two meet, because then this stitch line is going to help me turn my seam allowance when I go to flip it. So I'm going to start out at the edge. And again, just sewing that 1/4 inch seam under my foot. And sewing off the end. And then I need to do the same thing on the bottom. So again, I'm just going to put in 3 pins.
And I notice you put the pins in from the top, so you can pull them when you're stitching.
Right. Some people do like to put them in this way, and they have it backed off enough that you don't have to pull them out. But you know, I'm kind of old school, and this is the way I was taught. So I put them in there so they're on my right side, so I can pull them out as I'm going. And you ladies, you do want to pull your pins out. You don't want to stitch over them. It's the best way to break a needle, bend a needle, jam it up into your machine. All right. So now I can turn the mask right side out. So, and I find that I can make these quite a bit faster than the ones with the pleats. You know, those of you that have made 100 of them, you probably got a pretty good system down pat. But I find that I can crank these out a little bit faster. And then you're going to want to press this seam really well. And to put your little pocket in, so you're going to press your top and bottom seam well. And then they have you to put this a little pocket in here to put a wire in. They have you fold it in half. And like on my machine here, you want to measure about 1.5 inches from the point. So I got a little measuring board on my table. And I'm just going to put a pin on either side, roughly about 1.5 inches in. You know, this one doesn't have to be rocket science, and I just kind of put it in just the tip of it so I know where to stop and start. Okay. I'm going to go back to my machine. And again, I'm just going to do maybe just a little heavier of a 1/4 inch. And I want to do, I've turned on my stay stitch so I get a lock stitch before I start, just to lock those ends. Then I'm going to stitch to where this second pin is. And again, I'm going to do a lock stitch there. Okay, so what that's doing is giving me a little casing along the bridge of the nose to put that wire in. You can use pipe cleaners. I tend to use the twisty ties from like a loaf of bread. I buy the little plastic bags that always come with a whole wad of those ties. And you know, over the years you don't use them all up, so I went to the very back of that drawer where things go to die, and I found a Ziploc bag full of them, so I'm pretty good to go for a while. You know, those mystery places in your kitchen. So now I have that little casing in there. And now once I'm done sewing these, I'll be able to take that wire and just thread it up into this little casing so that you can bend it. But again, that's why you want to try to have both of those seams going in the same direction. If one's going left and one's going right, you really got to work around to get that wire and find the hole correctly. So once I have this done, the last step, again, because I started my seam out at the edge, it gives me a nice place to fold it at, and I would run over to my ironing board if I was at home. So now I'm going to fold it up 1/4 inch, or maybe a little bit more than that, and then I'm going to fold it again, and I'm just going to butt it up too. So this is giving me that hole to put my filter in there if I want to, and then here is my casing to thread my ribbon in. So I fold it up, and then I'm just going to stitch that down. And I'm going to stitch pretty close to where those two meet, right on the edge. And again, I'm doing a lock stitch at the beginning and the end. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So you can see that if you kind of get an assembly line going, you can really crank them out pretty fast. Alright, trim off all my little ends and my mask is finished. So it's pretty quick. I would take my ribbon, I'm going to flip this off my head real quick again. So your ribbon is just one piece, it's about a yard long, and I like to thread it, take it the old-fashioned, put a safety pin on here, thread it through the casing from the bottom up and then back around. So then when you want to put it on, the tie is going to be on the bottom. So I'm going to put that part on first, slide my mask, and then put the second one on, and then I can just flip it up over my ears, pinch my nose, and it's nice and fitted to my face. Okay. Now I prefer to have the ribbon. I like the way it slides back and forth. Elaine does like to have the fabric strings. She feels that she can just get it a little bit tighter to her face when she pulls it up. So we'll show you how her mask fits her when I'm done with showing you one more thing. For those of you who don't like messing with the bias tape makers and all the ironing and folding and sewing, or if you can't find the bias tape makers, we also have one other option, and it is called the tube turner. So it's this little tool that kind of, again, the old-fashioned where you would sew a strip right sides together and then have to try to work it back through itself with a safety pin. So you would take a strip, oops.
Here, we'll look on the floor where it just fell.
Yeah. So for this tube turner, they come in different sizes. I needed a strip that was 1 3/4, and I'm just going to fold it in half, and I'm going to sew that 1/4 inch the entire length. Okay. I already have that done here. So here's my strip. I don't know if you can see my seam. Okay. And now I'm going to take and I'm going to load this entire strip onto this tube. So I'm just going to put the tube right in there. And because this one's long, you really kind of need to squish it on there. If you're working with something shorter, but I got to get the entire tube so that my little metal end is coming out the other side. All right. Okay, so we got that on there. And then I'm going to take my wire, and I don't know if you can see, it's kind of got like a little pigtail on it. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this wire through the tube so it comes out the other side. And then I'm going to pull a little bit of my fabric up, and I'm going to poke that point through the fabric. Come on. There we go. And twist it until that little pigtail comes out. Okay, so it's loaded on there. And now I can pull, I don't know if you want to, as I pull this through, you see the fabric is just pulling off of the tube into the middle.
Just pulling the wire out the bottom.
Right. And here's my fabric. So now I can just pull, and it's just going to pull off of the tube and turn the corner, go into the middle of the tube, and just flip right side out. And there you go. You got a whole length of string already turned, sewing only one seam without having to do all the ironing. So it just makes it pretty fast. And then again, I could take this, put my safety pin on the end, thread this up through my casing, down the other side, and that's going to give me my finished mask. All right. So I'm going to grab the cabin for a minute, and I'm going to show Elaine, and she's going to talk about why she prefers the fabric strips over the ribbon strips.
First off, this is really a cool mask because it's made out of oriental fabric. Cheryl made it for me. I don't know how she found oriental fabric in her stash, but she did. So this is mask just like you had it, just like she made it. This has a fabric tie. For me, I have this loop just comes over my head. And then I found that these are real stiff. So I can just pull this up. I can put that over my nose. And I put this loop over my ear. And this is pulled, it's just gathered here. I don't even have this tied around, and it's down tight around my chin. And it holds in without having to reach over my head and tie behind me again. I can either leave these hang, I could cut them shorter, or I can throw them over my back. But this way I can pop my glasses on and off. I have my hearing aids in with the elastic masks. They always pull out, the elastic sticks to my hearing aids, and for some reason the fabric doesn't. And so it's just nice, and I can just pull it down, and when I want to put it back on, just hook it up over my ears and pull these little guys tight. So it works out really, really nice. Way more comfortable than the other masks that I've tried.
All right. So gives you a little project to work on this weekend if we're all more in a frenzy than ever, because it's not just the medical people that are needing masks. Now it's our family and loved ones just to be able to go to the grocery store or the hardware store. So we just wanted to give you another option. And again, because people were asking us for the pattern, we just decided the easiest way was to link it to this video on today's Daily Dose, and you will have all of the information you need to make your own masks.
And a nice thank you to Patrick Lowe's. His pattern on the website is real nice, and we'll get you the link to that.
Yeah. So we hope everybody has a great weekend. Stay safe. We are off Saturday and Sunday, so we will see you on Monday.
See you Monday. Thanks.
Bye.